Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Civilian Oversight Commission meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. Will everyone please have a seat? Can everybody please take a seat? What I'd like to do, which has become our tradition, when I ring the bell, we will take a moment, feel grounded in your chair, have some nice deep breaths, arrive from wherever you're coming from, and we'll have a quiet meditation. And we will now stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stand as you are able and join with me reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd like to turn to our chair, our executive, I'm the chair, excuse me, I am the chair, our executive director, Mr. Williams, who will read out loud our code of conduct.
The following code of conduct is operative during today's Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission meeting, and all are reminded to abide by the following rules. Speakers must cease speaking immediately when their time is ended. Public comment on agenda items must relate to the subject matter of that item. General public comment is limited to subjects within the jurisdiction of the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. Public comment does not include the right to engage in dialogue with the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission members or staff. Please remain respectful of the forum and refrain from uttering, writing, or displaying profane, personal, threatening, derogatory, demeaning, or other abusive statements toward the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission, any member thereof, staff, or other persons. Members of the audience should be respectful of the views expressed by the speakers, staff, and Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission members, and may not clap, cheer, whistle, or otherwise disrupt the orderly conduct of the meeting. You may raise the roof. A person engaging in conduct that disrupts this meeting is subject to being removed from the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission meeting.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make regarding our last meeting. As many of you know, we unfortunately had to end our meeting early last month. In 28 meetings over a 2.5-year period, this has never happened before. And I hope it never happens again. And I want to invite all of you to join with us and join with each other in having a meeting that's conducted so we can all hear each other respectfully. We didn't accomplish anything. No business was completed. And we had some very important items on our agenda, and we got to do none of it. So everybody loses when this happens. We can do better. Every person that sits on this commission is a volunteer, and we volunteer because we care about the issues. We care about what is happening in our community. We want to make things better. And we take very seriously the charge that we are a bridge between the community and the Sheriff's Department and the Sheriff's Department and the community. We know that we would not be here without the efforts of many of you sitting here today and others who advocated for the creation of this commission. There are commissions happening all over the country, so this is a moment where this concept of civilian oversight is preeminent, actually. We will be going to some of us will be going to the National Civilian Oversight Commission Conference in Detroit in September. I went last year, and I have to tell you, it was very illuminating to see how from small cities to larger municipalities are tackling the same issues that we are tackling here in Los Angeles. So there is an actual Civilian Oversight Commission movement. And most of them have come from the desire of the community. So we don't want our story to be that we can't do our charge, fulfill our charge, listen to each other, hear public comment, respectfully engage with one another, be respectful that we all don't think the same way. We have different politics, we have different backgrounds, but everybody today saluted the same flag. We all sat in silence under the same bell. So I want to really invite you all to help each other and help us have a very productive meeting today, so we can move forward and really be the Oversight Commission that everybody wants us to be and that we are dedicated to being. We have to think about the fact that we are in this together. As much as we have very strong opinions, there's a lot of emotionality because these are very serious issues that we deal with. But again, if we don't do it together, none of us can do it alone. So again, thank you very much for being here today, for coming back. And I just want to remind people that if we need to, we will have to ask people who are disruptive to leave. I hope we don't have to do that. I really want you all to be here. I want you all to participate in this meeting and future meetings. So let's turn to the approval of our minutes, which, if you'll notice, they're pretty empty. So as I just commented on. So can I?
We have one public comment.
One public comment on our minutes. So please come forward.
Greg Allen.
Please, Greg.
Hi, my name is Greg Allen. I'd like the minutes to include the fact that I did not get my public comment in, and that's the second time in the last 10 months that I didn't get to make public comment. 2 times I didn't get to make public comment. That's a Brown Act violation. I want it in the minutes and recorded that it's a Brown Act violation. You're not allowed to discount public comment. You're supposed to make time for it. Now, I think you could reduce a lot of that stress if you had a place where you could be open till 5 o'clock. Why do you have to leave this place at 1? Find a venue that fits the criteria here. We need more time. 30 comments, 190 minutes, we need more time. Nothing's more important than public comment. Now, I want the minutes to show that there was a Brown Act violation. And it's up to you guys to manage the time. You're supposed to call people that are giving you trouble and tell them to be quiet. Escort them out of here. Use the police that's here to do it. We have to have decorum. And that's important. I think that's what's missing. Thank you.
Ingrid, any more public comment on the minutes? Okay. Do I hear a motion to adopt the minutes?
Yes, I so move.
A second? Good morning. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? No abstentions? Okay, minutes are recorded. So now we are actually going to move to public comment. Can I know how many speakers we have?
We have 8 speakers.
I'm sorry?
11 speakers.
11 speakers. Okay. I just want to remind folks that there will be also time to comment on the agenda items. So we invite people to speak now who have other items that you would like to speak about, and hold your specific topics to the agenda item that you will be able to speak at.
Vaughn Beck, followed by Greg Allen, followed by Robin Bidston.
Okay. Good evening. I wish to say, I want to say one thing. All who support the hell that is crossing our sovereign borders, who have brought the thunder down on all American citizens, well, soon the American citizens, Donald J. Trump, John Trump, ICE, will bring the thunder and hell down on all of the curs who condone such pain and chaos on this nation's people. We must not tie the hands of ICE. And oh yes, good news. The Trump administration started a program to expand quick deportation everywhere in the USA. They are Miami, Atlanta, Chicago, Baltimore, Denver, Houston, New Orleans, New York City, and San Francisco, and oh yes, LA. LA needs a thorough cleansing of illegal aliens, diseases, M13 maniacal gangs of trash, and questionable hiring practices of the police department. Example, Jared Villanueva, who made a snide remark about the Jews and the Holocaust, which I thought was really grotesque. In closing, oh yes, must not forget, current FBI raids was search warrants of City Hall and Department of Water Power corruption. Great job, Mayor Garcetti. What happens to your promise to solve the corruptness in LA? Thank you very much.
Greg Allen, followed by Robin Bidston, followed by Raul Rodriguez.
Good morning. Day after tomorrow's, Alex Villanueva's having a town hall meeting in San Dimas. I hope some of you could make it. I plan to be there. I've been asking the same question over and over again. Cudahy, I went to Cudahy's meeting. I went to Santa Clarita's meeting. I went to an East LA meeting. I'm not getting my question answered. My question is to the Sheriff's Department. How does allowing undocumented criminals who, after serving their time and for doing their crime, being allowed on our streets, how does that make us more safe? And does it make us more safe or less safe? That's my question. Please, look for me at the meeting if anybody's showing up from here, and ask me in person to give you a question, because I've had that question buried for 3 meetings, and I'm not going to tolerate that getting buried anymore. I've asked it 3 times, and I've watched them hide the questions. I've had 5 people with me asking similar questions. They all get hid. Are you guys not transparent? Don't you want to tell me what's up? Can't you answer the question? Because I see that you don't, and you won't, and you've gone out of your way to avoid it. Now, transparency is important. That's what you guys are here to do. I call bullshit on the Inspector General transparency of the Immigration Ad Hoc Committee. You asked us to come make a public comment about it. Well, we showed up. I know several of my people showed up. I know what they said. And then you all came up with the idea that implementing SB 54 was okay, and to go ahead and do it. And all 6 recommendations you asked people to comment on, I showed up. I made my comments. Now I want all my comments and the people who I made my comments with out on display. I want the Attorney General to look at the Ad Hoc Committee for transparency. I want to see the people who came, the public who came, and what they said, and I want it on display for everybody to see. So that at least you have to explain to me why you decided to implement SB 54
when it was totally unsafe to do, and you had comments from the public that made it unsafe to do, but you went ahead and did it anyway. 54 charter cities with 7 elected or 5 elected people in each city each, or 750 elected officials decided SB 54 was unsafe for their city. It's unsafe for this city too. Now I want ICE put back into my jails. We had 22 guys picked up for killing with machetes and knives, and 19 of them were undocumented. That happened just this last week if you aren't paying attention to the crime in the area. Undocumented criminals need to be deported. It should be top on your list. I want a letter to the sheriff that you guys support that.
Robin Vidston, followed by Raul Rodriguez, followed by John Willis.
My name is Robin Vidston. I'm with the Remembrance Project. I did not get to speak at the last meeting. My issue at that time was with Commissioner Thompson for what occurred at the May meeting. There should be an investigation into his abuse of his position by coming into the audience and also assaulting one of the members in the audience. We're actually asking that he resign. We don't think that he's up for this position, and we would like to see a full investigation. Secondly, we are asking for an environment that's safe when we come to this meeting. At the last meeting, Mr. Rodriguez's signs were stolen, and they were returned, but they were destroyed. This is not safe when you're in a meeting and your property is stolen right in front of the deputies. Again, we are asking in the name of public safety that ICE cooperate with deputies. This, again, is an issue of criminal aliens. As was brought up, we just had 22 MS-13 gang members that have been committing murders, 19 in our country illegally. The newspaper reported that they probably committed at least 24 murders in the LA metro area within the last 2 years. And they're also recruiting from among the Central Americans coming to the city because we have a sheriff that guarantees the safety of criminal aliens within this community. We have other members of the community such as DeAndre Mitchell. He was killed with 4 other Americans in a fire in LA set by a man illegally in this country who had been in and out of LA County Jail. One offense among his many domestic and crime offenses was he kicked a woman in the head 10 times. Why was he not turned over to ICE? Why was he not deported? His crimes rose to the level of taking the lives of 5 Americans, including DeAndre Mitchell, who has left a 2-year-old daughter to be raised by his mother. Also, there was Bambi Larson in San Jose. She was murdered in her home by a man illegally in the country who had 8 ICE warrants. 8 times ICE tried to pick him up. 3 of those were in LA County. Again, this is an issue of public safety. We're asking for ICE to cooperate with our deputies. Thank you.
Raul Rodriguez, followed by John Willis, followed by Keith Hardini.
Good morning. As you can read my sign, Villanueva supports illegals and criminals. This is a sheriff that no longer has a respect of the people in Los Angeles County and throughout California. He is not representing American citizens. He is representing the illegals in this country. And we need to do something about that. So, Mr. Villanueva, if you don't change your attitude about illegal immigration, we will start a recall and we will get you out of office. So, you need to clean your act up. Secondly, I'd like to point out that Mr. Thompson should resign from his position as to what he did at that meeting where he got off and walked over here and assaulted my friend John Willis. Sir, you should resign. You're not fit for that job. If you can't stand criticism or you don't like what is being said by people like myself, well, suck it up, because that's our First Amendment right. And thirdly, I'd like to also say that it's important that this body do the best job to make sure that the sheriff of Los Angeles, whoever it is, does their job in support of the citizens of California. So please remember that by you doing your job, you're keeping that person informed as to what he or she should be doing when it comes to their job of representing citizens in California and Los Angeles County. One other thing I'd like to point out, the second side of this sign says that Villanueva is promoting illegal immigration. So please remember that it's important that we do what we have to do to keep this sheriff in line. Also, the fact that my signs were taken at the last meeting. Patty, I think that we spoke about this. I'm looking forward to her day in court because she had no right to do what she did. She damaged my signs to the point where they're no longer useful. I spend a lot of time and money to make these signs. Now, these people behind me shouldn't be making comments, and it's up to you to keep them in order. If they don't want to listen to me, they can go outside. They can go outside. That's where they belong, not in this venue. Thank you very much.
John Willis, followed by Keith Hardini, followed by Mike Wachowski.
Yes, I'm here for one reason: ICE and the jails. If I get arrested and placed in one of your jails, if I get a traffic ticket in another jurisdiction, you guys would hold me and ship me to that jurisdiction to pay that fine, right? But for some reason, illegal aliens get a pass because we wouldn't want to be mean to them. I don't get it. That's why I'm here. Put ICE in the jails, I'll leave. Mr. Thompson, be a man, step down. I don't know who you think you are trying to use intimidation and force and threats against people, but that's the problem. If you don't step down today, I'm going to have you arrested for assault. It's not, it's not the thing that you insulted me. It's the thing that you use thuggery and intimidation to try to silence me. This is my house. This is their house. I don't agree with them, but I'll sit up here and fight for their right to say what they got to say. All you own is that chair. The only reason you're here is to provide oversight to them. So I guess you're supposed to tell them, hey, tell your officers, don't go like victimize people if they say mean words. But yet you do it. You can't even take a few words without acting like a little schoolyard child and try to bully, intimidate, and push. Step down or you'll be arrested. You sat here last time, 4 people elicited terrorist threats. You did nothing. You did not bang your gong one time. A man stood up here and called my friend Adolf, a Latino American. Bang your gong for these people. You said you had a code of conduct. Where is it?
Settle down, please. Settle down, please.
I want my time back.
Please.
When you get them under control, I'd like to have my time back.
He's disturbing the decorum.
Could you please sit down? I would like everyone
How we get a
to
little
be
bit involved here.
Roll him out.
Roll out.
Sit down.
okay.
Pay attention to what's going on.
Can we resume now, please? Go ahead.
4 terrorist threats. 4. You did nothing. My friend here, they call him Adolf. He's Latino. His father, a legal immigrant, joined the military in World War II. Guess where they shipped him? To kill Nazis. And they're going to call his son Adolf, and you're going to sit there and do nothing. You didn't even reach for your stupid bell. You should step down also. You're not fit to be a leader of a Girl Scout troop going door to door selling cookies, man. Step down. Be a man. Step down. This is ridiculous. You let a chaotic scene happen here. My friend was assaulted. We had to be shipped out under guards. I will still stand up for their right to speak their piece, because again, this is the people's house, not your house. That chair's all you own. You owe me an apology. Be a man. Step down. Get ICE back into jail. Stop this unequal treatment. It's separation. It's unequal. Knock it off.
Keith Hardini, followed by Mike Wachowski, followed by Audrey George.
Okay. Good morning, members of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Commission. I first want to publicly express my gratitude to Almighty God, my thanks to ICE and all the other officers of the United States who are commissioned by the Trump administration for doing their duty in compliance with Article 2, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution to make sure that the laws are faithfully executed. I am happy to report that in Los Angeles on July 16, 2019, that federal racketeering, murder, and other charges were filed against 22 suspects or suspected MS-13 gang members. 19 of those indicted are considered illegal immigrants and arrived in the United States illegally in the past 4 years from Central America. All but two under the age of 24, which is tragic in itself, who law enforcement officers believe are linked to a series of grisly killings involving baseball bats, machetes, and other tools of medieval style violence, which really goes to show you that it has little effect on the gun control laws that we all seem to be subject to, and they have no fear of. President Trump has been under tremendous unfair scrutiny for singling out the MS-13 gang as a threat to public safety while making the case for tighter security along the Mexican border. Interestingly enough, the United States Attorney for Los Angeles, Nicola Hanna, has said in a press conference that the defendants mostly preyed upon other immigrants who lived in the communities. And I want to emphasize that. These are other immigrants who they preyed on, who lived in the communities. He also said that the MS-13 gang has been named as one of the top 5 transnational threats to spread like cancer throughout the United States. I kind of figure in conclusion, isn't it time, this is my question, isn't it time we revisited the right to carry laws by responsible citizens, those who are able and trained to keep and bear arms for self-defense? Thank you. Have a good day.
Mike Wachowski, followed by Audrey George, followed by Paula Miner.
I don't know if this thing bends down. Good morning, everyone. I've come today to speak about that I'd like to. This is my first time doing this, so I'd like to insist that the commission insist themselves on a private investigation into the murder of Ryan Twyman. I have watched these videos of the sheriffs who just. The excessive use of force that they used over and over again, trying to find some way to give a benefit of the doubt to the deputies that were on the scene at the time. And I can't find anything. If I responded in my life to the people who knocked me down, or almost knocked me down, with shooting them 34 times, I would not be standing before you right now. If Ryan Twyman were a white man, and this kind of excessive abuse of force was used on white people in this city, there would be no commission because there would be no sheriff's department. The way that these officers responded was not the kind of thing that you would see in a manslaughter case where someone was so hot-headed that they threw off and had not already had a plan in mind and a policy in their heads that if they felt themselves in any way threatened by any brown person, they were entitled to kill them. You know, this is institutionalized racism gone straight down to the core of these deputies. Now that may or may not have been premeditated, but it was definitely inside their head, and they definitely seemed to feel perfectly okay continuing to fire and fire and fire and fire and fire and fire into that car when it was absolutely unnecessary to do so. For the Sheriff's Department to be investigating this themselves is basically an exercise in absurdity. I don't think that anybody looks at that investigation with a straight face, not in the civilian community. Not anybody with a heart, at least. So I would like there to be an independent investigation of this murder, and I would like the commission to insist upon it. I know that you don't have a whole lot of enforcement power in this, but I would like you to use whatever power that you do have to make sure that some justice is done and to make sure that this city does not become a laughingstock of the nation in the way that it just turns the other cheek at excessive use of force and the murder of black and brown people by law enforcement in this city. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Audrey George, followed by Paula Miner, followed by Akili.
I came here today because of the important work you're doing to investigate and root out criminal elements in the Sheriff's Department. I came because although we know that racism is endemic and at the core of this whole department, the criminal element is something that can be addressed more clearly by you. I came because of important things you're discussing here today, but I'm so resentful because at the police commission meeting, which has always been on Tuesday mornings, there were very important things to talk about today. At the Board of Supervisors meeting, there were very important jail-related issues to talk about today and mental health issues. At the City Council, there's always important issues for the public to address in comment. I'm so resentful. If you know, I fully believe in getting subpoena power for this board, but if you can't even do something so obviously, if you can't affect a change in the date and time of your meetings, I feel so discouraged that subpoena power is going to be used effectively by this board. Why can't you do something about this very simple issue? Change your meetings. I'm here because I urge you to find out and release the names of the sheriffs who shot Ryan Twyman and who shot Paul Ray and who murdered them, and make sure that they are not only fired but prosecuted. Your recommendations have a lot to do with whether they get prosecuted or not. These are very important things to talk about, and even though they're not on the agenda today, I hope they will get your attention soon. Thank you.
Paula Miner, followed by Akili, followed by Michelle Infante.
I'm Paula Miner from Black Lives Matter. I too would like to talk about a demand for an independent investigation of the murder of Ryan Twyman by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. As you are aware, Ryan Twyman, a 24-year-old black man, was unarmed and murdered by the Sheriff's Department on June 6th. Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, as a community advocate for police transparency and accountability, demands that an outside, objective, legal organization or group be selected to conduct an independent investigation of this shooting. The community and Black Lives Matter have no confidence in the objectivity of or the truthfulness of any findings that would be produced by the Sheriff's Department. Community members and neighbors near the Twyman family have been harassed by the sheriff's officers since the shooting. The FBI, as you are aware, is investigating the issue of sheriff gangs, some of whom are alleged to be participants in the harassment of citizens in Compton, Willowbrook, the area where Ryan was shot, as well as in East LA. There are numerous other issues and policies of this sheriff and the officers that are unbelievably questionable. So we demand that the names of the officers who fired the fatal shots be released, and we demand that this commission make the recommendation and send it to the Board of Supervisors that there be an independent investigation of this particular shooting. This commission must stand up for civilians. The civilians you represent, and act upon these demands immediately. And we will be submitting them in writing to the commission as soon as possible.
Akili, followed by Michelle Infante, followed by Reggie Bunch.
My name's Akili. I'm with Black Lives Matter LA. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. So do not expect for me to be polite. Do not expect for me to be courteous. Pastor Thompson, thank you so much for your courage, brother. It's good to see you. And I'm glad that you have been able to overcome some of your illnesses, and we're glad that you have been a voice in our community. BLMLA is calling for justice for the Ryan Twyman family. And we are asking for some simple things. The names of the officers who committed this atrocity. An independent investigation. An end to the harassment. And an unaltered video. Those are some simple things that this commission, if they chose to, could do it. One of the things that we, in fighting for this commission, fought for was accountability, responsibility, and consequence. Without that, the message is clear that you can kill us and it's okay. You can shoot into our cars 34, 40 times and kill us, and it's okay. You can, in the death of A.J. Weber, you can kill us and then claim that the community planted or took the gun that was supposedly there, and that's okay. None of that is okay. It will never be okay, and that's why we will continue to be here. We will continue to raise our voice, to continue to say and challenge you to fight for and be a voice for all of us here. So we are calling for four things. An end, first, to the harassment. Second, an independent investigation. We do not, under any circumstances, trust this sheriff's department. An unaltered video and the names of the police officers. That you can do. Thank you.
Michelle Infante, followed by Reggie Bunch, followed by Lisa Vargas.
Good morning, commissioners. I've sat here for the last 3 years watching everyone and making recommendations, and like everyone else, I thought subpoena power is really important, and I know that it is, but I think we lost sight of the commission being able to make recommendations, and any recommendations that you feel necessary, which is pretty amazing. And you've done some pretty amazing things by bringing those recommendations forward. But I don't want you to forget about the families who have lost their loved ones 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and all the trauma that's been caused by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. It's important that you keep them in mind because their trauma continues on a daily basis. And even though you see new families up here who've lost a loved one, there are those families who have been left behind who believed that their children were suicidal and committed suicide when they didn't. The Sheriff's Department actually murdered those people. and those people are forgotten. Because now we've moved on and moved forward with new families that are sitting here in this audience. More trauma. And the department coming up here, sitting up here, and doing absolutely nothing about it. You come up here and you listen and you don't have an answer for these families that you're murdering over and over again. And for those of us who are in the community, it feels like it's black and brown genocide. And that's exactly what it is. It's sheriff deputies getting away with murdering families and causing them trauma for the rest of their life. And I think what some people here, these Trumpsters, have come up here and made this out to be about immigration when they weren't around 3 years ago to understand what this commission was built for. It wasn't built for them to come up here and bitch and moan about MS-13. It was built for families like these that are out here who've lost a loved one, who didn't have a place to go, whose stories weren't validated. And now this space is here, and they want to come up here and waste time and talk about something that's not as important as black and brown genocide with someone who's lost a child. They should be ashamed of themselves. This was built for these families, not for these people here. And for them to come up here and waste our time and we have to listen to this, I want to hear from his mouth. I want to hear what he's going to do. I want to know what the Sheriff's Department is going to do to stop all this trauma. Let's hear from them.
Reggie Bunch, followed by Lisa Vargas, followed by Isa K. Meskin.
Good morning, everyone. It was moved on my heart to give recognition to the black woman that sits on this commission, Priscilla Ocean, and to the black women that sit on this staff. I think we're seeing in this country white rage being allowed to put threats against black and brown women in power. And I think it behooves of us to encourage black women in power with a hand clap of encouragement. Particularly standing on
I thought there was no hand clapping. Get it on, bang it on.
Let's come to order, please. Thank you.
So they can do it, but we can't. So Eddie, you gotta control the meeting.
Can you please be quiet? I don't need your help in controlling the meeting.
Surely you do.
Please continue.
That's a warning, sir. Next time you're out. Okay? Your first warning. Yeah.
What about their warning?
Next time you're late.
Can I have your attention, please? If the cat calling continues, Greg, if this continues, you will be asked to leave. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. We're gonna come back to you in a minute. You will not lose your time. Okay. All right. We're gonna take a short break right now, and Greg, I would like you to leave. Please remove yourself. Thank you.
I'm listening and I will.
Kick the trash to the curb.
Discrimination. Treat everybody equally the same. Do not discriminate.
We're going to resume in 3 minutes. May everyone please just settle down. Thank you.
Mr. Burnett, they clapped. If you felt it was offensive, you should have said something to them. But you didn't, which makes you an offensive, racist bigot.
Is that right, sir?
When you treat people differently, that's discrimination. And that's what you're doing. That is discrimination.
Separate, not equal.
Kick you off. You're the one that's doing it.
Okay, we're going to resume now. Thank you.
Thank you. We're resuming. And I would really, once again, please ask you to respect the speakers. Let's not have any catcalling. Let's keep your commentary quiet. Do mental commentary. Let's not do it out loud, okay? So we can continue the meeting. Will you please resume?
Thank you, Patty Giggins. I think that illustrates the political atmosphere that we're in. That you can't even encourage, particularly women of color, in power, and those that are particularly on the right side of history. I think it would be naive of me to think that you all don't know what the Sheriff's Department is up against, or the scrutiny the Sheriff's Department is currently under. I want to recognize that scrutiny is warranted, Sheriff's Department, and also it's going to become a lot more hotter. Because no longer for the Sheriff's Department should sit in any type of comfortable room or be comfortable while multiple families sit here and process what's the reason for the taking so long for their loved one's investigation. And Sheriff's Department, the LA Sheriff's Department, y'all have been the ultimate example of why people hate the police across this country. Because you stocked up on so much power and so much arrogance. And even the sheriff had the audacity to put people of color, right? This type of color guard he's using. When someone like Baum Olmsted sits here, right? A very high power in command sheriff. But yet they use people of color to try to soften the blow. But I want to let you know, after this I'm headed to the County Board of Supervisors, because subpoena power is coming. And investigative power is coming. The Ryan Twyman family needs those officers' names released, those officers fired, and they impended investigation yesterday. Thank you.
Lisa Vargas, Isa K. Meskin, Jeremy.
I am the mother of Anthony Daniel Vargas, who was murdered by the East LA Sheriffs on August 12th of 2018. I'm here today representing my family. I'm representing the mothers that can't speak. I hear here a lot about immigration. I heard the word execution. I've heard the word racism. Execution is what they did to my children. They executed our lives. They didn't just affect one person. East LA Sheriffs killed my son. They shot him 15 times in the back. Had a spokesperson come out for their department that same day he was murdered, saying that there was a person in the front, in the back. Autopsy report showed he was only shot in the back and he was down when he was shot. So for me, this reporting was very, very important. I'm here to let the board, I was at the East LA COC, and I said it there, and I'm going to say it again. I'm representing all the mothers from East LA. For the mothers that the Sheriff's Department are telling that they're immigrants and they have no voice, I'm their voice. I'm Anthony's voice. I'm going to continue to protest. We have protests left and right going on right now. I've been in every meeting. We've been at Jackie Lacey's office. We've been with the BOS. We're going everywhere. So our faces will be seen until some kind of justice is done. My son, his name was defamed. He was made out to be some kind of a person in the community that he never was. We have more than 60 letters stating his characteristics, stating the kind of person that he was. He was helping our community, not trying to endanger it in any way. And he got executed. He got killed down. And now the community, not just me, you children. You have children that he used to take that didn't have fathers. He used to teach them. He was taking them to Bible study. He was teaching them how to fish. He became known in the community at 21 years old. My son was only 21 years old for 2 weeks. July 27th will be his birthday, and we will be commemorating that day. That day will be a special day. But how do you tell his 5-year-old sister that he can't blow out those candles? How do you tell the community we can't have nothing for him because he's no longer here? My son was killed in the Nueva Maravilla projects. My son had every year a birthday party there that the kids would throw him. Now, where's the services for those children? When there was an officer killed at Salazar Park, Hilda Solis put out mental health services for the people that were there that seen it. Where are the services for the people that are around when our children are dying? We don't see none, and we demand some justice. You will be seeing my face everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, everybody, please, let's refrain, okay?
Issa K. Mixon, followed by Jeremy, followed by Andres Kwan.
I learned about this meeting by looking at Change Links. It is a monthly of all the progressive activities. And I saw this meeting was taking place at this Metropolitan Boardroom. I was stunned. Why there? I attended the Thursday meeting of a very pained, traumatized community, and you were going to come with recommendations. I thought it's a little soon, but maybe you got your act together and had recommendations to which we could respond and add. I am really shocked that we are here and the community is separated from their own in order to talk with you about this fantastic meeting. The behavior as revealed by the community shows no difference on the part of the sheriffs from Mussolini's black shirts and Hitler's brown shirts. I don't use the word lightly, but this was fascist behavior to continue to traumatize a community receiving no services. I mentioned the Maori way, where the perpetrators were directly confronted by the victims and had to do restitution. And then I read that $53 million were paid in a class action suit against the women who had been brutalized and humiliated in a facility run by Villanueva. I don't know why there isn't a recall movement of Villanueva among your recommendations. I don't know. Please, no hand clapping.
Can you let her speak, please?
Wait, let me clarify.
Can you please be quiet? Please continue. Please continue. Please continue. Please.
I'm sure I made a slight factual error, but the violations of human beings is not, it's quite clear. How much more testimony do you need? How many more mothers have to come before you? What are your recommendations already? What is being done? I would like to see, I'm not a mother with a dead child killed in this manner, but I would like to see these sheriffs having to go clean the toilets of the home for a year. Whatever the parents want, they should be able to tell those specific sheriffs, you have done this to me and you must do this in order to come back to the human society. You don't belong here. Get them out. I told you then, you need to start fresh with a whole new crew, sensitized to a community.
Jeremy, followed by Andres Kwan, followed by Melina Abdullah.
I'll be quick.
I think it's interesting that the Trumpster drivers in this room keep talking about investigations when there's currently investigations into like the city hall and city council, DWP, all these things. There should be investigations into the sheriff's department, not by the sheriff's department. You shouldn't be investigating yourselves. I don't know how that's even a question. It's ridiculous. Ryan Twyman was executed. There's no other word. And if you see it in any other way, then you have internalized this state-sanctioned oppression in a way that is scary. When people in this country are being shot with assault rifles by the state, unarmed people, I don't know. I don't really have a point up here. I'm just looking at the trauma of this community that keeps having to be exposed to this by these people that are allowed to disrupt for really no real good reason. They have no stake in this matter. They're just here to cause more pain and trauma. So please just be more cognizant of that and maybe act better on getting them out of the room and letting these families whose stories really matter be heard. Thank you.
Andres Kwan, followed by Melina Abdullah, followed by Adam Smith.
Andres Kwan, lawyer with the ACLU. Personally, I have to say that in the name of public safety, these Trump supporters, including Adolf over there, should go back to Riverside or Orange County and whatever white supremacist enclave they come from. What happened in your lives that made you so hateful? Commissioners, I'm an immigrant from Argentina where police and military...
John Willis, this is a warning. Excuse me. Please stop his time for a second. John Willis, this is a warning. One more outburst and you'll be asked to remove yourself.
So you're going to
stay quiet.
Call that man Adolf. Kick him out.
What?
You're banned, you're gone.
Okay, will you please leave?
Thank you.
You may leave now.
Is that a lot of order?
I'm asking you to remove yourself. Thank you. You have been warned. Please leave. I'm sorry to say that we have to ask John Willis to leave because he continues to disrupt.
Yeah, you're not controlling the meeting. You're not controlling the man's brown man.
You keep disrupting the meeting. You will be asked to leave. I am not. You do not have the floor. You need to be quiet. This is a warning for you. Raul Rodriguez, this is a warning for you.
Warn them.
You do not have the microphone. You do not have permission to speak.
I do have the voice.
Please continue. I'm sorry.
I'm from Argentina where the military and police kill with impunity. And in Argentina and post-apartheid South Africa and elsewhere, truth and reconciliation processes were developed to bring about restorative justice to communities devastated by unspeakable violence. Here in LA, sheriffs and police are killing with impunity. But no, instead of restorative justice, Villanueva set up his so-called Truth and Reconciliation panel to rehire deputies fired for excessive force, misconduct, dishonesty. This started with Carl Mandoyan, who was fired for beating up his ex-girlfriend and lying about it. And the first thing Villanueva does is to rehire him. That's not a Truth and Reconciliation panel. That is an impunity panel. And this impunity must stop. A month ago, we grieved with Ryan Twyman's family. They will be here today. And they aren't alone. Anthony Vargas' mother is here with us. And there are many, many more fellow human beings whom the sheriffs and police killed, murdered, executed with impunity. And most recently, Paul Rea, whom sheriff's deputies just killed a few weeks ago. Commissioners, do everything in your power with the fierce urgency of now so that no more mothers will have their children violently taken away from them with impunity. To start, we must address right away the sheriff's systematic harassment that's going on. Today, they're still harassing Ryan Twyman's family. They're harassing the family of Anthony Vargas and Paul Rea. And the undocumented mothers whom Lisa Vargas speaks for and spoke about because sheriffs have intimidated them for their immigration status. Starting today, the ACLU and the NLG will be assisting family and community members file complaints, civilian complaints, to the OIG and to the Sheriff's Department regarding this systematic harassment. And we want you to follow through and investigate this crisis. No more harassment, no more murders, no more impunity.
Melina Abdullah, followed by Adam Smith, followed by Michael Twyman.
Good morning. I want to open in the name of Ryan Twyman, whose family is here with us, and in the name of Anthony Vargas, and in the name of A.J. Weber, and in the name of John Horton, and in the name of all of those whose bodies have been stolen by LA County sheriffs. We open in their names because it's because of them that we are here, and we shouldn't have to be here. We shouldn't have to be here. I want to be real clear about who we are. Those of us who are here have jobs, we have families, we have children. This is not our paid work to be here, but we're also mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and uncles and sons and daughters and aunties. And so we're here because we're standing in the names that I just called, but we're also here because we don't want our own children to have to continue to walk down the street with targets on their backs. We want to remind you, and I know some of you know this, that you should also be here for the same reason. You should be here to stand for the community. The Sheriff's Department will try to dupe you and has tried to dupe you into believing that you're here to stand for them. You're not. You're here to stand for us. You're here to be our voice. You're here to hold them accountable. Hold them accountable for these murders, which do three things. Kill the body. We see this with every single one of those names. They stole the bodies of our loved ones. And then what they do next is assassinate their character. They say that they are people who they were not. They try to zero in on any possible imperfection that they have and lift that up and say that's why 16-year-old A.J. Weber deserved to be killed. That's why 24-year-old Ryan Twyman, who was an active father of 3 children, deserved to be killed. They assassinate their characters. But then the third thing is they criminalize the entire community. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of what's been happening since Ryan's murder and what's happened in each one of these murders, but they have targeted those of us who dare to speak out. They have arrested those of us who dare to speak out. On the way home from the Civilian Oversight Commission in the community, a 20-year-old young man was pulled over. Brother Cameron was pulled over by LA County Sheriff's deputies and had guns pulled on him and his 12-year-old sister for absolutely no reason other than he was doing that, quote, political shit. And so I want to ask you to do 4 things, and I know my time is up. We want the names of the officers who killed Ryan Twyman released. We want them fired. We want the release of the unedited video. We want an independent investigation because the Sheriff's Department cannot police itself. And we want an end to the harassment of our communities. That is your sacred duty.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Adam Smith, followed by Michael Twyman, followed by Chris Roth.
Good morning. My name is Adam Smith with White People for Black Lives. I too am here to echo the call for this commission to push for an independent investigation of the murder of Ryan Twyman and for all murders committed by the Sheriff's Department. History shows the calculated ineptitude of law enforcement agencies tasked with investigating themselves. John Horton was beat to death 10 years ago. His mother Helen is still fighting for information, as you all know. Ryan Twyman's family is here, living through the trauma of losing a son, a brother, a father, to demand a real investigation. Lisa Vargas is here, And the only information her family has received has been something leaked. Information which shows all the info the Sheriff's Department released the day they murdered Anthony Vargas and every day moving forward are absolute lies to make Anthony look like a suspect, to justify his death. It's not enough for this commission to be aspirational. The community needs you today. What are each one of you going to do today to lift up the family of Ryan Twyman? What are you doing today to guarantee justice for the family of Anthony Vargas? Anthony and his twin brother should be turning 22 together this Saturday. But instead, Dre will be doing it alone. It's not enough for this commission to talk about decorum and civility when Ryan Twyman's family is looking for answers as to why 34 shots were shot into Ryan's car. It's not enough for this commission to be talking about decorum and civility when black and brown families are being destroyed by this sheriff's department every day. A sheriff's department led by a coward who won't even show up to these meetings. And speaking of civility and decorum, I could give a hot fuck that some racist dipshit doesn't like me calling him Adolf. Though perhaps referring to him as Goebbels might be more apropos. So I'll ask again. What are you all doing today for Ryan Twyman's family? What are you doing today for Paul Ray and Anthony Vargas? What are you doing today to mitigate the violence exacted daily by this sheriff's department?
Michael Twyman, followed by Chris Roth, followed by Mr. F.G. Cortez.
Morning. I'm new to this right here. Ryan was my nephew, and I'm not saying all the sheriffs is bad. I done lived in the street, gang bang, and all that. I just want the two police that killed my nephew to answer up, and we get justice for my nephew. I ain't going nowhere. You know, I know it might be bad for me. I can deal with it. But for my nephew and my three great nephews, they need justice, they need closure in their life. Because if it was me that committed a crime on anybody, I'm gonna be sitting across the street in Boucher with no questions and none of that. So I mean, I think my nephew deserves, and his kids, and my brother and my sister-in-law, they deserve answers. Because it's no reason for the sheriff to walk up and open no man's car door, period. I mean, if I walk up to your car door, I'm going to jail. I see every day, man, that the sheriff, before they even stop a car, their feet is out the car, you in the back seat 2 seconds later. Come on, man. We don't deserve to be treated like that. If we get stopped for unregistered car stoplight, then cite me for that. Everybody don't carry guns, man. I was a gang member. I work now. I don't want no problems with nobody. Right now I just want justice for my nephew, man. He was a good little kid. 3 days after his birthday, he wasn't even 25 years into life. He didn't deserve to be slaughtered like that. Don't nobody go out and shoot no gorilla, no bear that many times. You go out in the jungles and you shoot a bear, you taser the bear. You don't kill no bear like that. He be let loose right back in the wilderness, man. All I'm asking for, all of us have kids. If something happened to your kid, you want answers. I'm gonna be put on the news or whatever. I'm a bum, I'm a scum, all that, man. Them two police, man, they use my nephew for target practice, man. Who go get a shotgun out the car and come back and do that, man? It's obvious he didn't have no gun. He wasn't trying to hurt them police, man. They didn't have, man, all I'm asking for is justice for my nephew. That's all I want is justice. Them two police don't deserve to be back on the force, none of that. They deserve to be across the street in Boucher getting a sack lunch at 12 o'clock. That's all. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Wyman.
Chris Roth, followed by Mr. Cortez, followed by Michael Williams.
Good morning. I would just like to echo the comments that have been made here today by the families of the victims of these shootings. And I would specifically like to echo the demands from Lisa Vargas and from what Melina Abdullah was talking about in terms of demanding an immediate independent investigation into the deaths of Ryan Twyman, of Anthony Vargas, Paul Rea, and every other death that happened at the hands of deputies. We demand that the release of the names of the officers involved in all of these heinous acts be done forthwith, and we demand that this body pressure to the best of their abilities the California Supreme Court to force the disclosure of all of the names of officers on the Brady lists. And we ask that this board condemn the actions of Villanueva's administration for refusing and slow-walking compliance with SB 1421 requests. The Sheriff Department must also immediately change their practice of stationing their deputies as guards in the prisons at the start of their careers. This practice inculcates a sense of the other in the deputies that is an incredible impediment to any possibility of normalizing the relationship between the department and this community, and it serves only to further distrust and enable these violent reactionary tendencies that you've seen evidenced specifically with the killing of Ryan Twyman, with 34 shots fired into a vehicle where there was no weapon present, is completely unacceptable, and there's absolutely no possible rational justification that can call for that use of force against unarmed individuals. End of story. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cortez, followed by Michael Williams, followed by Sharon Sakon. Michael Williams.
Go to the next one.
Okay. Our final speaker, Sharon Sakon.
The killing of Ryan Twyman is just another example of how the unbridled lack of accountability for law enforcement in Los Angeles causes these things to continue to happen, not only in Los Angeles, but across this country. Because we lead the country in the most people murdered. And it's because of our lack of accountability and the lack of actually putting it forth actual implemental policies that would make sure that things like what happened to Ryan Twyman don't happen. Even just watching the video that is edited and that what the sheriffs put out shows you a lack of procedure. Even if they were there to arrest Ryan Twyman, the fact that they opened up his back door with guns drawn is something that should not be. Anyone in that position that has their back door open and first thing they see is a gun in their face is going to have a very interesting reaction. The contact that was made was not appropriate contact. And if that is part of sheriff's procedure, it needs to be changed. Because that doesn't make sense to me, and I'm sure that doesn't make sense to anybody in the community, that you would open someone's back door and point a gun in their face to try to de-escalate or try to apprehend someone in a peaceful manner. This is something that is egregious. This is something that continues to happen. And the sheriffs are one of the most responsible people that are killing people here in the Los Angeles area. Black people should not have to fear for their life every time a police officer or a sheriff's officer interacts with them. Anthony Vargas is another example of someone else who has been killed, and it was egregious. Anthony Weber is another example of a person who's been killed, and it was egregious. They have not received justice yet. And as a civilian oversight committee, meaning that you are supposed to be representing the community's best interests, you should be vying for not only the firing of the officers in Anthony Vargas's case, the officers in Anthony Weber's case, but also for the officers in Ryan Twyman's case. And you should be putting in not just reform, but revolutionary changes to the Sheriff's Department that would make sure that these kind of deaths don't happen. I don't have time to give you the statistics around the world that shows that our police department kills more than and Sheriff's Department kills more than entire country's law enforcement. This is something that needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed now, and you have the ability to do it.
Thank you. Sharon Sakon, followed by Dominique Brown.
Hi, I'm Sharon Sakon. I'm a historian and I'm also a teacher. The first time I heard about the Sheriff's Department was through the assassination of Ruben Salazar in 1970. That homicide remains unresolved in terms of avenging his death and showing justice to that community. I interview people who are in their 80s and 90s, and they're still hurting over Ruben Salazar, which happened in 1970. I can't imagine the ongoing pain that's happening in our community. I also teach people who want to become Sheriff's Department people at Cal State Fullerton. I teach this history, and a lot of them are a little discouraged about joining a force that doesn't police itself. They're really proud of law enforcement. They want to be a part of the system, but they're very cautious about joining a system that may disenfranchise their very family members. I want you to know that there are many people in college who want to be part of the system. I know tons of wonderful law enforcement people, but we have to have a conversation where we recognize there's a lot of loss in our community, and if we don't recognize that loss, we will forever be wounded. What I know about history is that when we talk about it, when we talk about loss, it's therapeutic for everybody involved, everyone. And we need to acknowledge people who pay taxes, who take up space in our community, who are killed unjustly or killed justly. Whatever the case is, we still have to honor their lives. This kind of brick wall approach of just saying we're always right doesn't help anybody. So I just want to make sure that there is an openness between us. Sometimes it's difficult. I know it's a hard world to be in right now when people throw out lies or call you a liar if you talk about things that really hurt you. But honestly, we have a great community of people who want to be a part of you, but they want to be a part of an ethical organization. At Cal State Fullerton, I asked my students, are they learning about, are you guys learning about how to deal with mentally ill people? Are you dealing with, self-regulation? Are you guys learning these kinds of issues? And they say no. And then I hear a few months ago on NPR that nobody wants to join the Sheriff's Department, that all of their overtime pay has been used, that was set aside for recruitment, has been used for overtime. Also, the money set aside for body cameras are used for overtime. And money set aside to train people in how to deal with mentally ill people is gone because of overtime. It just seems like a problem that will never be fixed if we don't, fix the organization to begin with. Overtime shouldn't be used for things that we're paid for to create transparency. Thank you for your attention.
Dominique Brown.
Good morning. I'm Ryan Twyman, older sister. So my brother was gunned down with his friend in the car. Thank God that he's alive. So we do have a voice. We're going to bring the Sheriff's Department to justice. Since you guys don't want to try to help us bring them to justice, which y'all should, they should not be working right now. Like they're getting paid to kill my brother? No. It doesn't matter if y'all feel that he was a felon. He still has the right for God to take his life, not for another person or an officer to take his life. And at the time of this death, he was sitting in his vehicle, not bothering nobody. And if they followed protocol, he would still be alive. Maybe arrested, but still alive. You guys killed a person, well, not you guys, sorry about that. The Sheriff's Department killed a person that was just sitting in their car, not paying attention to his surroundings or what was going on, for a police officer to open his back door. What would you do if somebody opened your back door and you have tinted windows and you're not paying attention? And your car was already started. And we know his car was already started because my cousins was there and they was all leaving at the same time. So if I have somebody opening my back door and I don't know who it is, of course I'm going to be moving my vehicle. And then they're trying to use the car as a deadly weapon. Why don't you get the way? Why don't you get out the way of the vehicle if you feel that the car is a deadly weapon? You start aiming inside the car. Your partner is shooting towards the car. So therefore, you're endangering your own partner. So pay attention to this video. They pulled up far away from them. They did not get on the mic and say, we have you surrounded, no nothing. This is the police department, this is the sheriff department. They didn't announce themselves. They creeped up on the car like they was gang members. They did not follow protocol and they're still getting paid our tax dollars. I'm paying them to kill my brother. I'm paying them to kill my brother. He has no guns, no nothing. Do you know how distraught my family is right now? They would be distraught if a person killed them on the street, but it's worse when somebody's supposed to protect you that kills you. The pain is even worse. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Right now, she is saying bad words because she's hearing everybody say, fuck the police. And she's 3 years old. How can I teach my daughter to respect the police if I don't respect them no more? Y'all have to understand, this generation that's coming up right now, they are learning bad stuff that's going on around the world. Not just my brother. Look at all these deaths that's happening by the police that's supposed to protect us. Follow protocol and they don't have to shoot to kill. Period.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Please stop the chanting. Thank you so much.
Mr. Cortez?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to touch on some points in my allotted time. I'm hard of hearing, and I was telling the people here at Metro that we should have at least a chair out there that is ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, as you know, and they don't have any facilities for the disabled out there. I signed with this pen, they only have pencils. Long time ago, we used to have, in one of my jobs, a problem with people erasing something that people had written with pencils. So my custom now is to sign with a pen. Different points I like to touch on. This is a Metro building. I came on Metro and the train broke down. For the second time my experience, the train broke down. That is why I was late today. Also, I'd like to tell you my experience with the new sheriff, I say new, Villanueva, because I was in custody for 17 months and I got to vote, which was a plus for ACLU. They help those incarcerated to vote. Also, I like to say, in my experience as incarcerated, there's a lot of food waste, a lot of waste in this agency, the sheriffs, the jails, Twin Towers. That should be collected, especially the food that is being wasted and the health package that they give, the image in that should be saved to give to the homeless. That's another idea. Also, I like to comment, I don't have any teeth. I was waiting for my ventures in incarcerated, but I had to wait for a year incarceration, which it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, everyone. We're now going to move to the election. We're going to move to the election of officers, and we're going to turn it over to Brian Williams, our executive director.
We have one last community member here who couldn't find a space. Can he just be afforded the opportunity to speak, please?
Yeah. Okay, we'll just do that one person. And then we'll move to the election.
Hi, my name is Cedric D. Mack. I want to thank Black Lives Matter and everybody for allowing me the chance to stand. On June 6th, I was actually in apartments with Ryan Twyman. I had left like 20 minutes before, and I just remember my phone ringing back to back. I remember my phone ringing back to back, and I was in the shower, and I'm like, dang, I can't even get through one song. So when I finally did answer my phone, I called my sister, and she was crying hysterically, and she was like, somebody just got killed in the apartment, so I was making sure it wasn't you. And so when I finally pulled up to the scene, I figured out who it was. I was in shock and disbelief because I was that close to it. Like, I felt that it really could have been me. Like, and I seen the pain in the family face and the friends face and everybody that came out to try to figure out what happened. And I remember hearing my sister's voice play in my head, thanking God that it wasn't me, and I could only feel for his sisters and his family, because I've been in the same position where I sat in my own car in those apartments and police walked up and snatched my door open without asking if I had license, registration, was on parole, probation, or anything. They just snatched my door open. And even and when I did look at the video, because it is hard to watch, I could see how the police parked behind cars, like out of sight. There was no way for Ryan and them to know that even the police was even on them. And he walked up to that back door and opened the car. The officer that was shooting he didn't know if there was kids in the car. He didn't know who was in the car. So it's like, I just feel like that could have been anybody, that could have been us. And I ended up at the candles. I was there every day. I was watching the pain and everybody crying and being broke down. So we planned a rally for Ryan, and we did a march from Anthony's Park to the apartments, and everything was peaceful. The people from Black Lives Matter came out, the Nation of Islam, the NAACP, the kids was out there. It was beautiful. The very next day, the officers came, put me in handcuffs, and told me they could take me to jail for violating my parole, which is a violation for being in there. So I already understood what I was risking. The next day, they actually did take me to jail just for that. So, but I just want to say that I think we should work on the relationship that the police have with the community. That way, they respect our rights and respect us as people and not as gang members, because just because people are gang members don't mean that they bad people. And just respect us as people. We want the same respect that y'all give everybody else in these other neighborhoods. If you come and do your job, all right, do your job. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If not, then, you know what I'm saying? But if y'all don't have no reason, y'all not responding to calls, y'all shouldn't be out here snatching people's doors open.
Thank you so much.
And doing all that. But I just want to say thank y'all, and justice for Ryan Twyman could have been me.
Yes?
Madam Chair, we had a lot of comments on that issue, and I know the election's important. We're going to get to that, but is there anything that we could hear from our executive director or from Inspector General's representative, County Council on the Twyman matter at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Vera. We heard multiple reports about issues happening at vigils that were occurring for Mr. Twyman, and not just Mr. Twyman, but for other victims of officer-involved shootings as well. So we sent a communication to the sheriff, I think it was maybe about 2 weeks ago, we're still waiting on a response, to ask what the status of that was, but also to ask the question of who the officers were that were involved in these multiple shootings. So we're continuing to follow up with that. We're hearing what the community is saying, and we're doing what we can to get that information out.
Can I follow up and anything on the video? Are we asking for the unaltered video?
We did not ask for that video. We can't ask for that. And we'll make that request this week or right now as we speak.
Okay, let's do that and I'll follow up. Sure.
Okay. Again.
Well, can I have one follow-up, Madam Chair? I'm sorry, since we also have our representatives from the Sheriff's Department, can I ask them, you take harassment of victims' families seriously, sir, I assume, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, when a complaint is filed, do you open an investigation for an allegation of harassment to a family member?
That's correct.
Is that grounds for termination?
It depends upon the actual findings. Initially, it's documented on a form we call a Watch Commander Service Comment Form, which is in triplicate. 2 forms are kept by the department. 1 form goes back to the reporting party, and each one is actually serialized. And they're told that within a month or so, they'll get the name of the lieutenant who conducts the inquiry. So contact them, contact the involved deputies, and come up with a finding of the investigation. And if warranted, it can go further into an administrative investigation.
Okay. And I raise it because at a recent town hall meeting, sir, we heard repeatedly from numerous families grotesque levels of intimidation and harassment of members of victims' families. And so I, as one commissioner, am going to follow up to make sure that we see statistics for that office, how many complaints have been opened, what disciplines have been imposed on it. But we're just bringing to light to you as a member of upper management to know that there's a lot of pain in the community, not only for the use of force, but for the aftermath, for the treatment of families afterwards. So I'm going to follow up with a written communication asking for some data on that. But we hope to get the results pretty soon and have a robust discussion with the captain at that sheriff's station to make sure the community's concerns are known.
Sure, and also what happens is that any of these parties, you can either have them call the station direct, report the situation, or they can call the OIG. The OIG can take a complaint and refer it to our office. But I said everything's documented, so there will be no sidestepping the issue. It will be investigated.
Commissioner Ocean.
I have a question about one of the tactics that was raised, particularly by our last speaker, which is the Sheriff's Department deputies opening doors of cars upon an initial approach, for example, during a traffic stop, or in this case, attempting to arrest someone. That seems to me, if upon an initial stop, to be unconstitutional, and in the latter case, when you're trying to arrest someone, to be dangerous both for the person who may be getting arrested and the deputies. So I'm just wondering, and I've heard not only from our last speaker that this is a practice that's happening particularly in Willowbrook and in Compton. I've heard it from other residents of Compton. That deputies, when they are stopped for traffic violations, that deputies will simply open the door, even before they've asked for license registration, before they've notified the driver why they're being pulled over. And I would like to both ask the OIG and ask the sheriff's representatives whether this is a practice of particular substations, and if so, where this is coming from. So I would like for there to be some kind of inquiry about this practice of opening car doors without there being, in some cases, even cause for doing so, which endangers everyone. So I'd like for there to be some kind of investigation into that. The second question I have is more for the OIG. I think there are a lot of questions about independent investigations, and I think rightfully so. Folks don't trust the Sheriff's Department to investigate themselves. I don't think any agency should be investigating themselves. There obviously is an inherent bias that will prejudice the outcome. And so the question is, what are the possibilities for independent investigation? And I think the OIG probably is in the best position, or maybe county council, to answer that question, because I think the public would like to know there are legal impediments, right?
So I think that all of these issues that are being raised are very important, but because we're subject to the Brown Act, my suggestion would be that we agendize it for a future meeting instead of raise the issue and refer it to staff and OIG, County Council, or the Sheriff's Department, and then we can agendize it for a later meeting rather than have a discussion at this point, which would be
well, what I will do, then I'll hold my comments for where we do actually have an agenda item, which is for commissioner comments, and I'll make a series of requests of the OIG and of the Sheriff's Department and County Council. Thank you.
Question: does the Brown Act prevent us from receiving an update of what can be publicly disseminated to the audience and to this commission today as it relates to the status of the Twyman investigation?
That's actually on the agenda. At the end of our agenda, we've asked for an update on current investigations.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I just want to add to the conversation about how families are treated, how other community members are treated in these situations. Is I want to remind everyone that the Board of Supervisors just passed the Family Assistance Program, and within that, because we're going to have 4 departments working together, and we as Oversight are going to really make sure that that happens. I'm going to pay close attention to the rolling out of this program so that families are getting information in a timely manner. If there's any kind of reaction or proactivity or anti-activity against the families, because it's going to be the coroner, the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Mental Health, and Department of Public Health working together. There's going to be social workers. There's going to be opportunities for counseling, and there'll be opportunities for communication. If there are any of these incidences that happen, I trust that that will be raised within this family assistance program, that there should be no retaliation, no specific, we've heard things of where families have felt that there have been sheriffs driving by their homes over and over again. And so I'm hoping that with the family assistance program, that will be another mechanism to shed light on how the families are treated. Okay. Well, we're going to move to the election, but before, I would just like to welcome the students from the Youth Over Violence program. They're here today to observe the COC in action as a member of the audience. Every summer, Peace Over Violence has a Youth Over Violence Summer Institute. Last summer, that class was able to come. They're back again. You guys want to wave a minute? Up there they are, over there, the students. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your interest in how we conduct our business. So we're going to move to the election. It's election time, and we're going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Brian Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're turning now to the election of Chair and Vice Chair. Our ordinance requires us to conduct an election at our July meeting on an annual basis for the positions of Chair and Vice Chair. So with that, I would like to open the floor for nominations for Chair.
Yes. I nominate Patty Giggins, our current Chair.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Patty Giggins will continue the easy job of Chair of the Civilian Oversight Commission. And I think we can do these at the same time. I'd like to open the floor for nominations for Vice Chair.
I'd like to nominate Lael Rubin for Vice Chair.
Okay, it's properly moved and seconded for nominations for Chair and Vice Chair. There being only one nominee, we'll close that nomination. And I'm wondering, if do we have to take a vote, or can we just accept by acclamation our new Chair, Patty Giggins, and our Vice Chair? There's no public speaker cards.
You don't want to take a vote?
Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor of Patty Giggins for Chair? Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All in favor for Lael, I almost said Lael Giggins. Lael Rubin for Vice Chair, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, so congratulations, you two.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Before, we can't nominate a new vice chair without saying something about our current vice chair, Priscilla Ocean. Priscilla, God, there's so much to say. Thank you for your heart and your emotion and for your ear for the people in your service as vice chair. You've shown great leadership and passion and great intellect, and you've shown what true community leadership is. So we appreciate that. It doesn't hurt that you're a UCLA graduate. We love that as well, so congratulations, and we look forward to working with you in the upcoming year as well. Yeah. Congratulations to you.
Yeah, as chair, I want to acclaim also to the support and the intellect and steadiness that you've provided for me personally, and obviously for the commission and for the community at large. So thank you so much.
And just thank you all. It's been a real privilege to serve as vice chair and to work with Patty and Brian and the staff. And best of luck in the next year, Lael. I know you're going to do an amazing job.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to turn to our agenda item 3A. We're going to hear from County Council a presentation on the status of active court-monitored settlement agreements involving mental health services, suicide prevention, and the use of force in the county jails. There's a series of cases that we're going to be hearing about, getting updates, and we have with us today, where's my notes? Miss Amy Park and Mr. Stephen Edwards. Welcome.
Thank you.
From County Council, you have the floor.
Thank you for having us here today. So my name is Amy Park. I'm here with Steve Edwards, and we are with County Council here to give a brief summary on the two settlement agreements related to conditions of confinement in our county jails. The first being the United States versus County of Los Angeles, which referred to as a DOJ agreement, and the second, which was filed by the ACLU, Rosas versus Los Angeles County Sheriff. Before we get into details of each lawsuit, we want to kind of give you an overview of the big picture of both settlement agreements and how compliance is measured. So each agreement has a federal court appointed monitor, and the two agreements combined have a total of 173 provisions. Each provision we can define it as sort of a requirement or reform required by the county to achieve compliance to meet the terms of the settlement agreement. Each of those provisions has its own compliance measures, sort of a set of obligations that the monitor reviews to assess the department's compliance.
And in order to achieve compliance with both of the agreements, both Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the Correctional Health Services, which is a part of Department of Health Services, have set up compliance teams. And those compliance teams play a critical role in collecting relevant information, navigating different data sources, coordinating with different bureaus and divisions to receive information, and to respond to requests by the monitors, by the subject matter experts who assist the monitors, and by the other outside oversight. These teams also coordinate to develop creative ways to cooperate between the departments, improve practices, and develop corrective actions.
So the Sheriff's Department created the Custody Compliance Sustainability Bureau. This was a requirement of the DOJ agreement, and CCSB for short, they have teams assigned to each agreement, both the Rosas and DOJ agreement. So what these teams do is they take each provision of the agreement, they select a random group of data based on a random selected date, which is provided by the monitors. So each quarter, the team will analyze the randomly selected documents and create a self-assessment package. Within CCSB, there's also a quality control review team that incorporates the review by a lieutenant all the way up to the commander assigned to the CCSB team. They review the data for accuracy and for the integrity before it's submitted to the monitor.
So I'm also, when the data is presented to the monitor, it sort of goes out in self-assessment packages. From that point on, the monitor and the monitor's auditors get to review all of the data, including the assessment, the compliance assessment that the department or CHS has determined for itself, as well as the supporting documents, including anything that was referenced as part of the audit. So they'll not only have a randomizer, but they'll have the particular documents that support each conclusion in the audit. And then the monitor, with the assistance of the subject matter experts and the monitor's auditors, makes their own independent conclusion, which becomes part of the public report that's filed with the court. So I'm going to give a little more information about the Department of Justice agreement in particular. As Amy said, this concerns conditions in the jail, but the DOJ agreement, as we call it, is specific to mental health services, suicide prevention, and uses of force. The uses of force aspect are incorporated in the ROSIS agreement, which Amy will discuss in a moment. Here, the self-assessments are split between Correctional Health Services and the Sheriff's Department, with some provisions having assessments by both departments. And the provisions cover a wide variety of activities. It's everything from the types of documentation that the departments have to show, the timing within which certain things must be done, and then also like substantive policies that govern particular activities. As part of the monitoring activities here, next slide if you will, the monitor conducts regular visits of the facilities, and these include a significant number of interviews with inmates, staff, and participates in several other activities, frequently being in touch with the Department and Correctional Health Services, which gives an opportunity separate from the assessment and the reports to communicate concerns, questions, projects, ask for specific data that might not otherwise be captured, and to follow up on things that have been asked previously. The monitor also attends biannual suicide reviews where the department, CHS, and Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department work with other county agencies to discuss ways to reduce suicide and self-directed violence risk in the jails. As I mentioned before, the monitor files a public report twice a year. Typically, the report sort of responds to the county's self-assessments in detail, so that the department or CHS will submit an assessment that asks for a finding, whether it's substantial compliance or something else. The monitor then reviews all of that documentation before reaching a conclusion, which, as I said, is independent. The monitor is not held to the conclusion that the county, CHS, or LASD requests. Here are the potential compliance findings in the next slide, I think, are substantial compliance, partial compliance, and non-compliance. And substantial compliance generally means that the county met the quantitative threshold of the particular provision, and those thresholds often are in the 90-95% range. Partial compliance means the county fell short of that, and non-compliance means the county fell well short of that. Here it's important to note that the monitor also takes into consideration qualitative measures, so it's not just looking at the quantitative results in the self-assessments, but also looking at how the county and its departments got to the compliance results, and whether that's an appropriate process, and whether there are any questions surrounding that. So here we've given you a overview of the current compliance. This is as of the monitor's last semi-annual report. So that report was filed with the court February 28. And the next report is expected here this fall. Here for provisions that are measured on a facility by facility basis. As you all know, there are multiple sort of jails, right? If one jail is at substantial compliance but another is at partial compliance, here we've included it as partially compliant, just for ease of reference. And I think now Amy will discuss the risks.
So the ROSIS agreement deals solely with excessive force. It's a federal class action filed by the ACLU alleging a pattern and practice in the county jails, particularly the downtown jails. This was adopted by the DOJ lawsuit because while this was filed after, this was settled before the DOJ agreement. So this applies to the non-downtown jails as well. The court approved the settlement in 2015. It is in front of Dean Pregerson, as is the DOJ agreement in the Central District. We have an appointment of a 3-monitor panel, each with equal power. We have Richard Durian here with us today to answer any questions you all may have after we are done. He's the monitor. He's one of 3 monitors in ROSIS, and he is the monitor in the DOJ agreement. So he's very, very knowledgeable. The ROSIS agreement has 104 substantive provisions with quarterly compliance obligations. ROSIS is a little trickier than the DOJ for the department to achieve compliance with because unlike the DOJ where each facility stands alone, the ROSIS agreement has all facilities standing together, and they have created a bucket system where provisions that may be unrelated to each other are tied together. So various provisions rise and fall together. The monitors have grouped these the 104 substantive provisions into 7 categories, as you can see on the board above, stemming from leadership to training, grievance system, early warning system, and use of force. The panel has regular visits to the facilities. If we can go back one slide, please. So they regularly visit the downtown facilities. They review force packages with the command staff. They interview inmates and staff, and they review the grievance system to ensure that it is properly documented and responded to. They also conduct biannual meetings with the sheriff. I believe the next one is approaching us soon. And they review self-assessment packages provided by the provided by the Sheriff's Department. Unlike the DOJ agreement, the ROSIS monitors file public reports at their discretion. The current panel has decided to file biannual reports in this matter as well, and it's sort of akin to the DOJ agreement. The panel's last report was filed May 31st of 2019, and the next one is to be filed November 2019. The panel's last report covered the 3rd and 4th quarters of 2018. So this was data submitted for those periods of time. And based on this data, the department was found to be compliant with 53 provisions, non-compliant with 39 provisions, and the monitors were unable to assess 12 provisions. Unlike the DOJ agreement, there is no partial compliance in ROSIS. So either the department is in compliance or they are not. Compliance is often measured with a 90 to 95% threshold. And that's it. Shall I invite Richard Durian up here if you have any questions?
Yeah, commissioners. Here he is. Welcome.
Welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back. The primary question that I have for you, since there has been a change in the leadership in the Sheriff's Department, have you noticed any difference in from your previous reports under the previous sheriff to the any current interaction with the current sheriff in terms of moving forward with the compliance?
The people who are responsible for the custody department, I've had the same level of cooperation, interaction. There's been a changeover in the leadership there. with Assistant Sheriff Olmsted and chiefs below him. But in terms of the cooperation from the leadership and also the cooperation from the CCSB and the responsiveness to my requests for information, I have not noticed any differences.
Good morning. Good morning. So one question I have is in line, I think, with Commissioner Rubin's question about use of force incidents. The current sheriff has said that the prior reporting under Jim McDonald of use of force incidents in custody was sort of, the books were cooked, that they were under-reporting violence in the jails, that it's actually increasing. And I'm wondering if you could comment on that, given that you're charged with monitoring use of force in the jails.
Well, what I think you're talking about particularly is assaults on deputies. Let me say, the statistics from the department, certainly going back prior to 2013, are completely unreliable and confusing in the way they were keeping their statistics. Since that time, I think the department has, statistics have improved significantly. I think the department now is reporting all or virtually all of the force incidents. You have cameras throughout all of the jails. So I now have a high degree of confidence in the use of force statistics for a moment, which is force by deputies on inmates from the most minor, just a compliance hold, through very significant assaults involving weapons such as pepper balls and tasers and things like that. But all of that is captured on video. I probably look at myself maybe in the neighborhood of 100 force packages a year. My other monitors will review others, and 98%, 99% of the force incidents are captured on the videos. So I've got a high degree of confidence in the use of force statistics. The flip side for a moment, and this is what the sheriff was talking about, was assaults on deputies. First of all, I think there is a correlation. When there is an assault on deputies, there's a high likelihood that there's also going to be a use of force involved, and it's going to get reported in that way. My conversations with deputies, it would seem to indicate that the physical force on deputies by inmates has not really increased in the last several years. There's a certain amount of assaults and by inmates on deputies and staff, but that amount, I think, has been relatively constant over the last several years. I do think that gassings, which is the throwing of a liquid, whether it's a urine or feces or milk at deputies, I do think that has tended to increase over the last several years. I've talked to deputies about that, and to a person, they believe that the number of gassings by inmates has increased. They attribute that to the type of inmates that are now in the jails. We have inmates from the AB 109. We have inmates who are there much longer, who have less concern about the consequences of throwing something at deputies. On the one hand, you think of physical violence on a deputy as being more significant than a gassing. But as a general matter, you know the consequences of a physical assault. You don't always know the consequences of a gassing. And a gassing, I think, is a significant problem, and I think it does have impact on deputy custody assistant morale in the jails.
And on that point, are those gassings, are those being reported so the claim is that there is an underreporting of assaults on deputies, for example. Have you found that when a gassing occurs that it's being reported by deputies?
Yes, and I think it has been reported for several years. I was told that there had been a memo indicating that deputies were not supposed to report gassings. That was not correct. There was no such memo. There was nothing to indicate that deputies were not supposed to report gassings or any other uses of force or any other assaults, just as they're to report all uses of force as well.
Thank you. And my second question has to do with what the Rosas settlement requires in terms of investigation and discipline. We're going to be hearing from the OIG, I believe, about deactivations of disciplinary investigations, and many of them have to do with uses of force in the jail. So, you know, use of unreasonable force for tasers or violent assaults on folks in the jails during cell extractions or other kinds of unwarranted use of force, where either investigations are being deactivated or after a letter of intent, for example, to terminate has been issued, that letter is rescinded and some minor disciplinary disciplinary punishment is imposed. I'm wondering, I don't have the terms of the settlement in front of me, and that's not necessarily the point of the presentation, but I'm just wondering, does that in any way implicate whether it's true, if it's true that there are deactivations happening or punishments are being reduced for use of force in the jails, does that have any bearing on the Rosas litigation?
Well, the answer is sort of a yes and a no. First of all, under the Rosas agreement, which is incorporated in the Department of Justice agreement, all force incidents have to have a certain level of investigation by the department, all of them, and those are called force investigations. And if a force investigation indicates that there is a problematic use of force, then it can become an administrative investigation that can lead to discipline. And I think the deactivation issue, and the IG will speak to that, is more in the administrative area. They don't deactivate force investigations. They conduct a force investigation. It becomes part of a force package. As a monitor, I have access to all of the force packages. I can ask for any force package. The department will give that to me. And they do a certain amount of investigation. If it's the least amount of force, if it's just let's say a firm grip to escort an inmate into a jail, the monitors have agreed with the department that there can be a somewhat reduced investigation, so that, because every investigation takes a certain amount of resources. But with that exception, which was something that the monitors agreed to, they're full force investigations of everything. And then after a force investigation is problematic, it can lead to an administrative investigation, which is done by the Internal Affairs Bureau generally. And we have access to those investigations, and we can also request those investigations. But I think that the deactivation issue goes to some administrative investigations. And I think ultimately, under the Rosas investigation, if there's a problematic use of force, it has to be reported, investigated, and suitable discipline has to be imposed. And if they are deactivating problematic force matters, that's a problem for the Rosas case and for the DOJ case.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for your report, sir. A couple questions. Of the 25 provisions that deal with use of force, and they're all important, your report here shows that 16 are non-compliant. Can you give us a little bit more detail or color about which ones are most concerning to you of those?
Pull something out for a second. Well, I would say that the most important provision is the force prevention principles, which requires the department to only use force when it's reasonable and necessary, to use the least amount of force necessary to gain compliance, and then to stop using force once compliance has been gained. We do see instances in which I think the department could do a better job with what law enforcement calls time and distance, waiting longer, trying to use some of the what we call divert training, which is the communication skills training that has been required by the Rosas Agreement, keeping distance from the inmate, waiting for backup, waiting for sergeants, things like that. There was early on a quick story by a former chief who was chairing a meeting of all the captains and going over the force statistics. And the chief pointed out the good news was that the vast majority of force incidents in the jails were now Category 1, the least amount of force. And in the course of complimenting the captains for that statistic and that result, he pointed out that nevertheless, the key issue is, of all those Category 1s, could we avoid force altogether? Was force unnecessary in those cases? So to me, I think the fundamental and the most important one is the force prevention principles. Most of the ones we do look at are in compliance with that, but the overall percentage is not as high as I would like to see it. So I would say that's probably the most important one. All of them have their own importance. And although they're shown as non-compliant, I will say that in the vast majority of cases, they are compliant and there is no issue, but the percentage isn't high enough to gain compliance as required under the agreement.
Okay. One follow-up. Sir, is there anything that we can do as a commission on Rosas, maybe even specifically on use of force, but broadly speaking as well, to further the work that you're doing? You're governed by different rules and a different regulatory or settlement scheme, but have you given any thought to ways that this commission can be helpful in furthering those goals?
I mean, that's a tough question. I have the ability to dig into things that make that it's difficult for this commission as a Brown Act board to do. The IG's office can do that. I can do it. And I will say, in my 5 years of doing this job, I've always been able to get the information I need from the department. So I haven't had to come to this commission or ask the IG to intervene to get me what I need. I think continuing to make these kind of public presentations and reports so that we can see publicly what progress the department is making, where it needs to show greater progress. I file these with the court, but the only time that I speak publicly about the results of these, of my reports and the work we're doing in these two cases is when I appear before this commission. So I do think that it's important for the public to know how the department is doing. I think the department takes that very seriously. They do respond. They look at these numbers and they want to see the numbers improved. And so I think doing this in a public fashion puts more pressure on the department to gain compliance with these provisions.
Thank you.
I can say that every time that you have come to the commission and presented a report and answered questions from the very beginning when we started, it's been very instructive for us, for me, for the public, because as you know, the old adage, out of sight, out of mind. And the more information that we're able to assess and the public is able to assess, I think is very helpful. So I appreciate your work and appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, and thank you very much for coming and giving us your report today. I want to make sure I'm clear, though, in the uses of force that become administrative matters for which there is an investigation. Are you seeing any increase in deactivations of those strictly administrative cases? I understand we don't deactivate force packages. I'm very clear on that. But specific to administrative investigations that run from a force package, do you see any evidence of an increase in deactivations?
I don't have enough information to be able to see that. What happens is I know what force investigations have led to internal affairs investigations, but what I don't know is if they've stopped an internal investigation. I don't necessarily see that information because I'm only getting force trackers. I guess I get them as once a quarter at least, and if I ask for them, I can get them more often. But I don't really have a window into that particular point when they're deactivating investigations. The information that I have was what I saw in the interim IG's report.
I guess my follow-up question would be then, how can we provide you with that type of a window? Because I think it's really critical information for us to know. And if you don't have the tools to give us that answer, we want to figure out how to give you those tools.
I probably, I say I probably because I haven't done it, but I probably could ask for it from the department, and I'm confident that I would get the information from the department. But I also think the IG's office has been doing that, and I'm not sure it makes sense for me to duplicate the work that they are doing. But I will say, I think looking at the jurisdiction, I think I could insist the department providing me that information, and I'm confident they would. But at this point, I'm prepared to defer to the IG.
And well, thank you for that, and perhaps the IG can speak to that, if not now, at least in the future, or the two of you can put your heads together and figure out how the commission can get the information, whether it comes from you or from Mr. Julian. We don't really care, but we'd like the information.
Anything we can do.
Okay. And one other quick follow-up, if I may. I know one of our folks in public comment earlier, the instructor from Cal State Fullerton indicated that she had had discussions with students who work custody of the Sheriff's Department, and she alluded to a belief on their part that they weren't receiving enough training in DVERT and CERT, or CIT rather, the critical incident training. So I'm wondering myself, do we have any mechanism to determine, we need to know if DVERT and CIT are still ongoing. I believe they are, but it'd be nice for us to know that. But also, more importantly, specific to DVERT, is there any way we can determine if what they're being trained is in fact effective in de-escalating? Because I noticed you made the comment how the chief had applauded the captains for seeing a tremendous increase in the lowest level of force use, which is a good thing. But if the purpose of DVERT is to try and keep us from using force, period, and we're not getting to that goal, is there something DVERT could do better? Or I'm just wondering the correlation between DVERT training and de-escalation. Is it in fact effective?
Well, I do think it's effective. We do know that almost every member of the department who was a member at the time that these settlement agreements went into place that were in custody have received the DVERT training. All new deputies and custody assistants who have been hired since that date have received the divert training. The divert training was something that was, we went over and over and over with the department. Ultimately, the monitors approved the curriculum and the presentation as well. We know from audits how many people have been trained. We know from audits how many have gone through refresher courses. They're required to go through refresher courses for as long as they're in custody. Anecdotally, early on, a number of deputies told us that they found the divert training to be very effective, that they used it, and it was helpful. I do think that when custody personnel get into a tense situation, they don't always fall back on divert training and use it to the extent I would like to see them use it. I think if there is any area, going back to what I said early, I'd like to see deputies take more time, put more distance, use those communication skills, and try to avoid force. And it's not always possible. There will be times where, notwithstanding time, distance, communication, they're involving a recalcitrant inmate, and they're going to have to use some force at some point. But I'd like to see that as a last resort. Now, obviously, there are times when there's a recalcitrant inmate who's assaulted. There is no last resort at that point in time. That's the first resort. They have to protect themselves. But I do think the deferred training is effective. Everybody in the department is getting that, in the custody section, is getting that divert training. They're getting refresher courses. They've told us they think it's been helpful and useful. So I think they are getting that kind of training.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, what we're going to do, thank you so much. We're going to open to public comment. I believe we have how many speakers?
6 speakers.
6 speakers? Okay, because we have such a full agenda, I'd like to limit the time for 2 minutes on this agenda item for the 6 speakers.
Yvette Correa, followed by Wendy M., followed by Shannon K. De Leon. Yvette Correa, are you still here?
Hi, my name's Yvette Correa, and I had a brother that passed in the LA County jails in 2017, and I feel the use of force is used unnecessarily. I think they make excuses sometimes and try to say people misbehave or, do things. We don't know what people go through that are institutionalized. I mean, some people do, of course, but I know in my particular case, but I'm sure, there's other cases out there where use of force is used when people are not even, retaliating or, they're following instructions. So there's something else, going on that's scary. And that's when it comes down to the bottom line that we know there's gangs. We know there's gangs, and we need to find out who's in charge of when there's times that they're allowed to use force against people when they're not, doing anything wrong. And even if they are, it's just the way they handle things is inhumane, and they definitely need training. I feel that officers would benefit from the type of training that employees receive when they're handling people with mental issues, like psychiatric type of training or things like that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Wendy M., followed by Shannon K. De Leon, followed by Kat Duran.
Good morning. So, the sheriff of this county built his campaign on promises that he broke. He lied to his constituents for his seat in power. The entire institution is built on lies, on greed, and on hatred. The sheriff has taken actions throughout his time that have reinforced the dogmatic principles that this institution was built on. Los Angeles is supposedly a liberal city and a city of progress. But when the sheriff takes actions such as continually justifying the actions of abusers just because they wear the same shade of blue as him, and being a part of a system that criminalizes brown and black skin, one can only wonder the type of city we actually live in. The police and the sheriff are the biggest and most violent gang, murdering black and brown people and allowing children and adults who sought out a life in the land of the free and the home of the brave to be locked up in cages. You guys run with the motto, bleed blue, but you only want to make the streets red. What I see in the officers here and around the county is narcissism, cowardice, and greed. Do your job and protect more than just the superior and the affluent. Abolish ICE and fuck 12.
I want to remind everyone that we want to speak on the agenda item at hand. Right now we're commenting on use of force in the jails and the ROSAS, or the settlements. Who's the next speaker?
Kat Duran, followed by Kiara Artola, followed by Nick S.
You know what? What we're gonna do for applause is this. Okay? Like raise the roof. Let's do that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shannon K. De Leon. In the year of 1971, a group of feminist activists pioneered an organization now named Youth Over Violence Institute, after a woman was raped on Sunset Boulevard. At this institute, I've learned violence comes in many different forms. I live on the intersection of Lexington and Virgil Avenue, which growing up I considered a border or division of community from Vermont. Throughout the years, Virgil has gone through a huge wave of gentrification, driving the people I consider my community out, and new expensive coffee shops, brunch places, expensive clothing shops, and higher rent in my community. Virgil now does not cater to the people who live in the community and who do not have higher income. This is where the law enforcement comes in. This is where I question on which side do you really protect and serve. To one side of Virgil, you have Sunset filled with new bars, coffee shops, and places where hipsters stay. And to the other side, you have Vermont, where you have some real bomb-ass taco stands next to the train station, a swap meet on the weekends, and organizations that cater to minorities. Now, where do you think the law enforcement stands? To answer your question, they are more prevalent outside train stations, outside that swap meet, and on the corner of every block going around Vermont, stripping people of wanting to come together for the community. Violence is everywhere, and it's something that happens on both sides. I'm not asking for more law enforcement presence, but to equally balance where you place the law, because they contribute to the push of gentrification on my home. Thank you for listening to what I have to say, because when you serve the youth, you protect the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kat Duran, followed by Kiara Artola, followed by Nick S.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kiara. I used to wake up early at 3 in the morning to get my hair done for the LAPD cadet program down in Rampart, located in Westlake, wearing my gray crew neck with my last name in big letters across my chest, my hands flowing down firmly against my leg, my hair slicked back, feeling so proud of being a part of LAPD. Being part of the Run to Remember, I'm running a 10K marathon race that pays tribute to first responders who have made the ultimate sacrifice. But when do we have a Run to Remember for those that we've lost thanks to the people dressed in blue, putting them behind bars, limiting their given rights? I was proud of even considering myself part of this program. I'm 17 and I say fuck the police, because they aren't even here to protect or to serve they're here to point and shoot. My brother's incarcerated for something he didn't do. He tried killing himself in jail, and he was put in the box for what? For something he for something he wanted to do to himself. He is hurt, and he continues to get hurt in jail by these people. I am just 17, and I get these letters from him, and I feel like I can't do anything because he's just there. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Kiara Artola, followed by Nick S., followed by Keith Harding. Keith Hardini, followed by Sahara.
You're the first time. Okay. I'm back again. I didn't, I'm from Los Angeles, South Central. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so I'm old school. I'm 63 years old. I've been around for a long time. I've seen the community change. I wanted to just make a comment about use of force training, because as a martial arts expert for 50 years, I was training the probation officers in use of force training for the probationers, for the kids. And I have to say that it's very important, as the gentleman was saying about diversion training. I recommend more training, and I think that's good. Training in hand-to-hand, self-defense, jiu-jitsu, things like that, martial arts is very, very effective for the law enforcement officers, because if you don't have a gun or any type of weapon, then the last resort, of course, is hand-to-hand. So I think it's a very good thing in training. I recommend that because I used to train these people. And I just want to also say to the audience who seem to think that the police are so aggressive and violent, that's because the society is violent. We have violent kids. We have violent adults. So it is very difficult. You know, the basic law of nature, that for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction applies. And I teach kids this all the time, that the action you use is going to be used against you. So it's better that we train them to be self-controlled. And that's something we don't see in our society anymore. And I know that from growing up in the society. So as a black man, 63 years old, I've never been shot or beat up by police. And I lived in South Central Los Angeles. I lived among the Crips and all those guys. So I understand what it means to be self-controlled. And that's what I just wanted to say this morning. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Nick S., followed by Sahara.
Good morning. You know, I heard you guys say that, you know, how all this, the guy gave his report. Let me tell you how it really is in LA County Jail. You get beat. You know, you don't get, you know, you wait all week for a visitation, your mouth off, you don't have your hands in your pocket, you miss your visit. You know, you got to think about what we go through. There's a time I've seen a lot in LA County Jail. Recently, there was somebody, the guy gave a report about gas scenes and stuff like that. You know, you got to sit there and think about what does a human, you know, get his feces and his urine and put it in something and try to hurt somebody with it. What are those people doing to him? What are they doing to him to make him so mad and upset to do something like that? You know, I'm telling you, I got a partially torn MCL because I didn't have my hands in my pocket when I went to the chow hall. I seen a guy be beat half to death because he came out of the chow hall and got back in there because when he sat down to eat, he wasn't eating fast enough. They told him to get up, and he was eating as he was dumping his tray, and he smacked the tray out of his mouth and beat him, took him around the corner and beat him half to death. I also seen people mouth off or say things, and a while back there was a child molester that mouthed off. So the deputies gave the inmates his paperwork, and they beat him pretty bad. Now, I don't want to give my opinion on that, but still, you know, what these deputies do. You know, so I mean, I didn't prepare for this one. I just wanted to speak on it. But I'll tell you right now, if you guys really want to know what goes on in LA County, go in as an inmate or go ask the inmates what goes on. They'll tell you exactly what goes on.
Thank you.
It's still
Thank
going
you.
on there.
Sahara, our final speaker.
Hello, my name is Sahara. Most of you pretty much know me already because I've been here a couple of times. Bear with me again because, you know, the trauma, it always starts to kick up every time I have to speak. Most of you know I lost my partner, Quentin Thomas, March 9th of last year, 2018. Inside of Twin Towers Correctional Facility, he was in a one-man cell and was found, I guess, just dead there. Still don't have any answers as to really what happened. I know the agenda item is supposed to be on use of force, and it's crazy because, you know, you always hear like little stories about the LA County jails that, you know, people be getting hurt really bad in there due to sheriffs, the officers beating them, or not even just the confrontations that they get in with people, you know, with just the other people. So it's like, I hear that stuff, but it never really hit until it hit home. Until my little girl lost her father, you know? And then I come across a strong, amazing Black woman, Helen Jones, and she lost her son in there. And it was brutal. After I heard the story, like, a mother had to fight 9 years. 9 years to get justice for her son. And still to this day doesn't have what you would call justice because the statistics still aren't even changed. You guys know you did something to that man. It was already proved, and you still won't change the statistics to act like you guys are good, and you're not. Your badge is just a front. You guys are evil. You guys are literally the definition of evil. What you represent is evil, and you guys just don't care. It's like we come up here and we have a certain time to speak, a certain time limit to speak, but it's just that's all we do is get to speak. What happens after this? Y'all go to the next agenda item.
Thank you. We have to go to the next. It's true. Yeah, man, you're absolutely right.
You just don't care. It's been over a year. Y'all don't care because I still have nothing. My daughter's already started to speak and ask questions. How the fuck am I going to explain this to her? How am I supposed to explain this to my baby?
We're going to continue. Apparently,
I know. Thank you.
So we'll continue. The staff will continue to follow up with you.
Justice for Quentin Thomas.
You ready? Okay. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It's going to be real quick. We'll come back and resume. Thank you.